They've got to get in touch with their own emotions and experience them, because they're not going away. And there's a lot of men on medication that are trying to make it go away.
Yeah.
It's not going away. So they need to start expressing and feeling their own emotions.
Welcome to The Discerning Mother, the podcast for moms who want to heal their mind, body, and soul, learn to trust their instincts, and step fully into the motherhood God has designed for them. I am Bridget Tibaldi, a board-certified women's health coach. I'm here to help you break free from fear, to reconnect with your body, and to embrace the peace and confidence that is already within you. Let's get started. All right, and welcome back to the Discerning Mother podcast. This is Bridget, and I am here today with Kenneth. And so I'm really excited to chat with you, and I love what it is that you're doing. So you have the Catholic Men's Coaching, which is, you might be like, why are you having this man on a podcast about motherhood and womanhood? We will get there, I promise. But before we do, Kenneth, can you just give us a brief, who are you?
First and foremost, Bridget, thank you for having me on your show. This is it's an honor to be speaking with you and with your audience. My name is Kenneth Haroff. I am a men's life coach. Currently, I'm 57 years old. I'm married. We have 6 children. Devoutly Catholic. I'm a cradle Catholic, and I like to tell everyone I'm a revert. I left the church for 11 years, and I did all sorts of messy things, and then I found my way back, which is a whole other story, and it would take another podcast to share that one. And I've experienced a lot of things in my life. And one of the things that I bring all that life experience and all my coach training and all my coaching to is to really help men be better husbands and fathers. So absolutely, I work with a lot of men who have relationship issues, and I have learned a lot over my career about women in general and what the feminine really is seeking out from the masculine. So that's what I bring to the table.
Okay, so I have so many different questions to ask you. I guess the first one is that, can you just give us like an age range of your children just to get a little bit more background?
Oh, of course. My oldest is 27 and my youngest is 8. We are a blended family. So I was married previously, and about 11 years ago, my wife passed away. I'm widowed. And I met my wife, so I had 3 children, she had 2, and then we had 1 together. And that's one of the best stories there is, of again, as it pertains to childbirth. But
okay, and we will touch on that in a little bit. Before we do, though, so you have this coaching business, and again, we talked previously, but just to give the listeners a little bit more information, it's CatholicMen'sCoaching.com. And so can you just give like a little bit of a brief, what is it? What do you help with? That sort of thing.
Absolutely. So I work with men from 18 years old to 80 years old. So age doesn't matter. I've worked with men all over the world from every background. So I have men in my group right now. They're not Catholic. They come to me because of my style of coaching. So everything I do is from a Catholic perspective, but coaching itself is non-religious. So about 95% of all coaching is about the same. So again, just to give it perspective, whenever God does come up in a group, whenever we touch upon anything religious or spiritual, we discuss it from a Catholic perspective. I create brotherhood, so it's not just coaching. If anyone has ever experienced business coaching, that's a common one, like a lot of people understand business coaching. You have to pay somebody to come in and help you get your business better. A life coach does the same thing for people. I help people with their relationships, with their career, their finances, their health, everything that pertains to their life. And with men specifically, men rise with challenge, and women tend to rise with I just lost the word, with praise. So again, as we're all, which is beautiful, God has created this in a beautiful way. We're all of equal value, but we are so different as men and women. 1,600 physical differences, all sorts of emotional differences, all sorts of spiritual differences. So men need other men in their life to challenge them and hold them accountable. And again, I'm speaking out loud for any of your audience that might be struggling with their man. Get him to a brotherhood, get him to a men's group, get him around other men that are going to literally slap him around. Like, this is what we need as men. we need men in our lives that are willing to not be liked and to say things, the tough things, and to challenge us and to call us out and hold us at a higher standard. This is how we're going to live into our potential. And again, I would hope that most every woman listening would, when you look at your husband and you see all that potential and he's not living up to it, again, he needs to be around some other men, and not the guys, not going out bowling. Like the guys are going to really push him and challenge him to be better.
Okay, so you said something that just reminded me of a session that I had with a client a couple of days ago. So we were talking about how she really needed to hear something from her husband in terms of like around her birth, where she just really needed somebody to tell her like that her body is good, she's doing a great job, that sort of thing. Yes. And part of that was that she really wants help with making decisions around health choices for their children and that sort of thing too. So she has been sending her husband podcasts to listen to because that's one of the things that she loves to do. So she was sending him podcasts and trying to get him to be a little bit more involved. And as you probably guess, he wasn't listening to the podcasts. And then it created this like little, not like a big rift, but just this little like annoyance between the two. And so we had talked about maybe how can you get your husband to not necessarily listen to the podcast, but at least like kind of be invested in the decision as well, in terms of like speaking almost to his primitive brain is how I talk about it.
Right.
And it reminds me like men, what you just said, men rise to challenge, women rise to praise. Right. So if you were giving this client of mine some suggestions for how to get her husband on board with maybe listening to the podcast or helping her make these different decisions, or even just giving her that like verbal praise that she needed or verbal affirmations that she needed, what would you tell her?
First and foremost, I would absolutely celebrate her for actually asking the question. Like so many women don't ask. Like this is great that she's inquisitive. She's trying. She knows that, again, her husband could be giving her more and he's not giving it. And she's just struggling to communicate that. We are different. And again, so men are very direct. And when women use lots of words, this is part of being feminine. You guys use lots more words to say something. And we don't always interpret it. Like we can't always understand what you're saying. So for her just to take a moment, step back, and I know what I'm asking. I'm like, I'm going to ask her for just a moment to get into her masculine energy and say, look, I need you to show up differently. And I'm not telling you that you have to do it perfect or do it right now today. But what I'm saying is you need to find some other guys to get around that will help you rise as a man so that you can bring back the things that I'm really needing from you. Does this make sense, Bridget?
Yeah. So it's almost like, I don't want to say like being a jerk because that's not what
you're not being a jerk. It's from a place of love and compassion, and it's sharing. Here's one of my needs, because here's the problem. Again, and women don't know, they're not direct, and you want us to know what you're meaning. You want us to know what you need. You should figure it out. You should already know this, and we don't. We're not trained. When we grow up, we're not told all this, unfortunately. And I'm here to change that, because when I work with my dads, they're gonna teach their sons, right? So but we do need to show up for you in a different way. We need to learn how to truly, fully see you, hear you, and acknowledge you as you are, and stop trying to fix you. Because I'm sure that a lot of women can also appreciate that. We're always trying to fix things. When you bring us a problem, we immediately want to fix it. Here, I know how to fix that. No, we need to learn how to listen better and to acknowledge and support you in that. And then if you want us to fix it, again, we just need to hear that. Can you please fix this? And then we're going to be all over it. We're going to fix it.
I think every wife listening to this is like, yes, preach. It reminds me of my husband and I just went on a marriage retreat last weekend, and which, by the way, they had babysitting at, and it was completely free. And it was awesome. Like, this is amazing. And It wasn't like babysitting where they put them in front of a movie. It was like actual, like playing with them. It was amazing. But the thing that reminded me of what you were just saying is that there are 3 different communication styles: avoidant, pragmatic, and something else. I forget the third one. And so the woman who was giving the talk, she said most women are going to be avoidant, or the other one, again, I forget which one it was, versus most men are going to be pragmatic, and where they just really do want to come in and like fix things. Yes. And so she was giving us suggestions on like, how do we set ourselves up so that we don't have a fight or whatever whenever we're just asking a question or like just needing to vent. And one of the things that she said to do, and I was already doing this because my husband told me to do this, and and it works, is that whenever I need to vent or just like get something out, I literally will tell him, I don't need you to like fix this. Please don't even really respond. Just let me talk to you. And half the time I don't think he's listening to me, but that's fine because he's at least like there looking at me and not saying anything. And so I think it's just, I don't know, what would you say to that about how to get husbands more on board with that?
Absolutely. So that's what I'm speaking to though, Bridget, is that you're being clear and precise in what you need in that moment. And you're not speaking in code. You're not being general. You're not talking, oh, my friend, when they have this kind of, like, you're not pointing outside of yourself. You're actually just sharing with your husband what you need, and he's giving it to you. We will, as men, we'll give you everything we got if we know what it is that you seek. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the communication problem, is that, again, we're looking for direct, because that's the way we talk to each other, by the way. And you're talking to them like you would talk to another woman, and vice versa. So that's the problem with us. We are too direct with you, and we need to learn how to be more in our feminine so we can have conversation with you more like you want to have conversation. So again, this is the beauty of masculine and feminine, that we are different, but together we create life, by the way. Like, so yeah. It's the most wonderful thing that God ever did. And we need to really learn about each other so that we know how to give each other what we need.
Yeah, for sure. And so would you say that the biggest thing that you work on with your coaching clients is communication and how to communicate?
Most people in the world that can put together a sentence already know how to communicate. Why are they not communicating is the bigger problem. So I learned this a long time ago, because it's not about more information. If anybody just needs more information about communication, go to Google. You will have plenty of reading to do. And it most likely will not change a thing, because what's really going on is that, again, I'll speak for men, deep down inside, we carry around the I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy. And that comes out in all sorts of ways. I get defensive when I feel like you're attacking me, all these things. So it gets in the way of communication. So at the core of what I do with men is I help that man love himself, period. Because a man that loves himself will live into his potential. A man living into his potential will lead his wife. A man that's leading his wife will be there for her emotionally and spiritually, and not just physically.
Yeah, that's so good. So helping the man love himself. And I know that this is obviously something that I do with women too. But with men, it seems like if you were to ask a man, they would probably say like, oh, yeah, of course I love myself. So how do you break through, I don't want to say, maybe breakthrough is not the right word, but how do you help them like peel back those layers so that they can see all that?
Yeah, it depends on who's asking them, Bridget.
Yeah, so tell me more about that.
I don't get that answer very often, because we get raw and real in my coaching. So when I ask that question, I get real answers. I'm frustrated with myself. I can't believe I'm at where I'm at in my life. I once in a while I hate the man in the mirror. Like they're honest and real. Rarely do I ever hear a man say that he loves himself, because if he does, he wouldn't be on my coaching call. So we dig into that, and then we find out that maybe it's a little bit more about selfishness or vanity. It's not love.
Yeah.
It's not love. If for an example, if all men loved themselves, we wouldn't have the 70% obesity rate or whatever it is. We would take better care of ourselves. We would have more balance in our life. the people around us would feel more loved. If we want to bring up scripture, love your neighbor as yourself. When men don't love themselves, the wives don't feel as loved. The kids are not feeling as loved, right? Like I grew up, I know my dad loved me, but I didn't feel it. That's different because I grew up with a dad that he doesn't love himself. And he passed away, by the way. So he didn't love himself up to the day he left. And he had a miserable last 25 or 30 years. Miserable.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
But look, men's suicide rates on the rise. Divorce rates are not going down at all. Anxiety and depression are booming right now. And most of this comes back down to men are lonely, first and foremost. There are very few men have really solid friendships. So they need more friends, which goes back to women and wives. Please push them out the door to go get male companionship, healthy male companionship, not running down to the bar or whatever. And they need a coach. They need a mentor. They need somebody that's done the work before them to show them what to do and to ask the right questions, to be able to dig in and dig deep. And with somebody that's not going to put up with the story. So every man has a story. Again, Bridget, if you were to ask a man if he loved himself because you're a woman, of course, I love myself.
Yeah.
And we're good at giving that story, but I see through the story. So we need other men in our lives. I had a coaching call myself today, by the way. Every good coach out there, if you're a coach and you don't have a coach, shame on you. So again, right? So I had my coaching call today with my coach, and I got it hit between the eyes with more than one thing. And here I've been doing the work for 6 years, but it never stops.
Yeah. So along that line of thinking, so you're saying that your father loved you, but you didn't feel that love. So how did you transform your own, how did you grow out of your childhood where you knew that you were loved, but you didn't feel that you're loved, and now you're helping men get to the bottom of that?
Yeah, I shared with you, I'm 57. I didn't realize it until I was 50. So keep in mind, it happens at different ages for everybody. For me, I was 50, struggling with my relationship with my wife, and we went on marriage retreats. We were meeting with our pastor. We had individual marriage counseling and therapy, and everything we did was making it worse until I finally took a look in the mirror and said, what's going on? What am I not bringing to this relationship that where am I failing as a man? And that's when I went out and thank God I got the right kind of help. And there's too many men not getting the right kind of help, which again goes back to the tragedy of men thinking that the only way out or that my family's better off without me. And
yeah.
So yes, it's that begins with that self-awareness. Something's not right. I am not being the man God created me to be. I'm not being the best version of myself. What's going on, be inquisitive, and then start finding help. Maybe it's therapy or counseling. I didn't share this already. I'm already 30 years clean and sober, so I didn't have to go do that. But a lot of men need to do that. Like go to a 12-step group, get clean and sober, stop with all the addictions. And then we know that pornography is rampant right now. These are things that men need to get cleaned up out of their lives so that they can start digging in and find out what's really going on. And most of the time we do all that stuff because we're deep down inside. Again, we're hurt. We got lots of traumas and wounds from childhood. And, men who grew up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, we were emasculated from a young age. Don't be a boy, put you on medicine for jumping around the classroom. It goes on and on and on. Right. And when we're told to be quiet, stuff it down, don't cry. And again, it is not caused, or it has caused just an epidemic of men not being masculine.
Yeah, and actually, my husband and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago on the way to church, and we were saying how, we live in a very country setting, similar to you. And if those of you who can't see his shirt, it's a great shirt. It says unmasked, unmuzzled, unvaccinated, unafraid. So we probably live in similar areas. I know you're in Texas. And so we live in the middle of hunting area. Everybody hunts around us. Everybody's has the big trucks, all that sort of thing. But what's interesting is that if you, and I mean this in like the nicest possible way,
Yeah.
if you look at the type of men who generally live in this area and probably the country and the world, the men who are deemed like, quote, manly men with maybe like the big trucks, the beards, they hunt all the time, they can fix anything, like all these different like, quote, manly things are actually some of the men who don't have the qualities that would make a good husband, or even just like they're wonderful, nice people. Like, don't get me wrong there.
Salt of the earth. Yes.
Yeah. But they don't have these qualities that allow them to lead their wives and their families towards heaven. And so it's almost like we need to strip away what we consider to be manly. Because, like, yes, is it nice to have a guy who can fix the car or chop the wood or whatever it is? But ultimately, like, that's not going to get you to heaven. And so, like, how do we start to change, like, I know we can't change the minds of like all women, but Catholic women in particular, like, how can we start to change what it is that we're looking for in a man? So if somebody is discerning marriage or anything like that.
Beautiful question, because I believe it always starts with a definition.
Okay.
So unfortunately, right now today, when I've already used the word masculine a few times.
Yeah.
Some of your audience has already been turned off. Because what do they define as masculine? They think of the toxic masculinity, which I don't even like that term. I'm going to change that to the immature masculine. So
yes, I love that.
The immature masculine might drive a big truck and look manly, but when he goes home and his wife says this or says that, it's always yes dear, yes. He's the yes man and the pleaser all the time, and he's not leading. He's not leading at all, and it causes a lot of pain for her. I know this. Right. So this is not the right way to do. Or you might flip it to the other side where he's always stomping around. If he doesn't get his way, he yells a lot. And again, just the immature masculine. But when I say the word masculine, I'm gonna define it. A masculine man is a man of honesty, first and foremost. There's 5 things. It's really simple. Honesty. Starting with honest with himself, because most men lie to themselves about the things that they're doing or the things that they're saying. So again, it starts with, they got to be honest with themselves and then honest with everyone else. And there's 8 types of liars, by the way. So if anyone's listening, go, oh, I don't lie. I can prove it. We all lie. There's 8 types of liars. So you have to be intentional about not lying.
Yeah.
The second is to be a man of integrity. My yes is yes, my no is no. When you ask me to do something, I'm going to calculate the cost. I'm going to calculate the energy. I'm going to calculate whether or not I have time for it. And I'm not just going to say yes to make you happy or to get, I'll be there. I'll do that. And then never show up. Like, and again, first with ourselves, men say all the time, oh, I'm going to get to the gym. They don't. We're out of an integrity. So a man of integrity, a man of honesty, a man of integrity, a man who is congruent with who he is. Too many men running around trying to pretend to be somebody else. So God created us also very uniquely. There is not another man on this planet like me. And I say that humbly. So I have to be congruent with who I am. The 4th thing a masculine man does is speak his truth. Too many men right now are not speaking up. They're not speaking their truth, which is why the world is in such dire needs right now, because there are not enough men speaking up.
Yeah.
And then the 5th thing of a masculine man is to be the protector of the feminine heart.
Oh,
we are called to protect the feminine heart. And when I said that, I didn't say I'm not called to protect my wife's heart. I'm not called to protect my daughter's heart. I am here to protect the feminine heart. That means when I'm walking through the mall, I'm at the gas station, it doesn't matter where I'm at. If I hear or see anything where a woman is being attacked verbally, physically, as a masculine man, I take action. Now, honesty, integrity, congruent, speaks his truth, and the protector of the feminine heart. Who did I just describe perfectly?
I mean, I'm going to say Jesus.
Jesus Christ was the most masculine man to ever walk the earth. And we have all sorts of examples in Scripture Again, drawing the line in the sand, protecting the woman that was caught in adultery, the woman at the well. Like, he protected the feminine heart, and he spoke his truth. He was congruent with who he was, 100% a man of integrity and honesty. So this is what men need to do, is to look more like Jesus under this context, not a lot of the other fluffy stuff that we hear and see out there. And then if you Google masculinity from a secular standpoint, you wouldn't want your man to do probably half of that. This is why it's important to define it, though.
Yeah.
So I help men become men of honesty, integrity, congruent with who they are, get them to speak their truth. And sometimes you don't want to hear what your husband has to say, but he needs to say it anyway.
Yeah.
And then being a protector of the feminine heart, at the same time protecting you, not just physically, because here again, most men's, I'm great at protecting. No, you're not. You're the one yelling at your wife, putting her down. You're not protecting her emotionally, even from yourself. We got to protect our wives physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Are you praying over your wife? Are you praying for your wife? Are you praying for protections over your household and your children? So again, as men, we are called to protect more than just physically.
That's all so good. I could just listen to you talk about that all day. I have one specific question around the call to protect the feminine heart.
Yes.
And so I have some friends who don't have expressed interest that they do not like whenever a man holds the door open for them, because it makes them feel like the man is like showing that they're better than them, and like that it makes them feel a certain type of way. I don't know what that certain type of way is, but these are also typically more feminist women. So what would you say to a woman who is like, I don't need a man to do these sorts of things for me. Like, I can do these on my own. What would you tell her?
Sometimes that's a tough conversation, but I would have to start by asking some questions. Does this make her feel weak? Does this make her, like, how does this really make her feel? I would really like to know more about that. It just, in particular, if I'm having that conversation, because again, I believe at the end of the day, what you said is true, is somebody that really, and when we say feminine or feminist, movement, again, all sorts of different definitions come up. We'd have to stop and define it, right? Because the term has been hijacked in a way that's been very unhealthy, right? Because from a man's standpoint, I look back at maybe the way the feminist movement started, and women wanted equal right. Like, I'm all for that. Let's have some equality. But then when it kind of crossed that line where women started down this path of, I don't need a man.
Yeah.
I don't need a man. Our society is doomed at that point, because we need each other.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need a woman to be complete. I'm a complete person without anybody. But as a man, my vocation is to be married and to have a family and raise children. I can't do that on my own. I can't. I need my wife for that. And we need each other. And as married couples in the Catholic faith, we are called to get each other to heaven. I mean, if I didn't have her, I probably would never make it. I'm just going to be honest about it. I would really struggle to make it. So I'd have to learn more. Like, where's this coming from? How does that make you feel? Just because a guy's opening a door for you because he was taught manners when he was a kid. That's all. It doesn't mean anything, right? But this is because the way they define the world and the way they're defining feminism is just different than what I would define it as. And so, again, I think that would be the real conversation. Men are, so go back to men are called to be the protectors. This is just, it's just nature. You don't even have to believe in God to know this one.
Yeah.
Men are called to protect. The way our brains work, the way the chemicals go in our bodies, when there's danger, we go towards it. We don't run away from it. Like, we're called to protect. And so all I'm saying is that men in general need to learn how to do that emotionally and spiritually on top of the physical. And women would then be able to relax a little and soften, because let me go back to this. Femininity will heal the world, but men have to step up to protect the feminine so that can happen. So again, it's going to take both of us. It's a team. It's a teamwork. but men have to step up first. We have to step up first. We have to be the men that God created us to be, so that the women can be the women that God created. And that's, unfortunately, we live in a world today where there's not enough men stepping up. There's a lot of men running around and living in their feminine, which leaves a lot of women running around in their masculine, and it creates chaos. It just absolutely creates chaos.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we're seeing that all over the place. And that was a perfect segue to some questions I have about like marriage and birth and pregnancy and everything. So with that in mind, like how can Catholic men, or just men in general, step into their role as spiritual leaders in marriage, especially whenever their wives are pregnant or like in early parenthood? Like, how does that all work?
All right, let's Bridget, let's start after marriage, and they're just trying to get pregnant.
Yeah.
I was blown away when I learned this. Hey, men, how about praying for great sex? You can pray for that.
Yeah.
You can pray that you have a great physical relationship with your wife in the contents of the marriage bed. So let's first and foremost pray that it's healthy, that it's vibrant, and that it unifies. That's what it's supposed to do, is unify and then procreative, right? It's two parts. So that's where we begin as men, is praying. And then as our wives are pregnant, and I could tell you some whopper stories, having 6 kids out in the middle of the night looking for chicken gizzards. So we as men really need to step into and lean into being your support system during those months, instead of running away, hiding in the basement, going out, like there are some men that try to avoid it at all cost, or roll their eyes every time you ask for something strange, and really just lean into it and have fun with it, and be there. Because then there's, my first story would be like tragedy strikes. My current wife and I, we had a couple of miscarriages. So we had to really lean on each other emotionally, and I really needed to be there for her. 'Cause the second one was actually, we ended up in the hospital for a couple of days. So it wasn't a great experience. But I can't imagine what she would have done if she had to go through that alone. Like if I was busy working, I can't be there. I just left work and stayed with her the whole time. And not just physically being there, but emotionally being there and having conversations and doing all that. So again, I encourage men to really step up and get in touch with your own emotions so you can feel hers, because if you don't do that, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, and that's so good too. And like, how would you suggest, or how would you help, like a man's in your program, just per se, like how would you help or suggest that man prepare spiritually, emotionally, as he transitions from just husband to father?
I'm not quite sure there's any preparation for that. When we become fathers, I can share this with you, Bridget, again, for all the women out there, our lives significantly change when we become a father. I mean, the world looks different. Again, this goes back to the protective, by the way. It was one thing to protect you. Now I got to protect you and a child. And so that just changes a lot of, my behavior is going to change. A lot of men like grow up overnight. So even when you're young and you're married and he's maybe still partying a little bit, I don't know what word to use, but like he's still, running around doing like all sorts of crazy stuff. And then you have a child and it just all abruptly comes to a stop. Don't be shocked, because again, his life just changed. He just became a father. He just became responsible for some other living human being that literally is so delicate that can't live without us.
Yeah.
So there's, again, I don't know how you would prepare for that, other than, again, if you're not living as your congruent self, if you're not living your best version, better start working on it now, because it's just going to get worse as you have kids and life gets busy and your wife and you start getting disconnected, and next thing you know, you're thinking about leaving each other. Like this is the way it happens. So men need to start doing that work as early on as possible, to start really digging in, dealing with their past traumas and wounds, and all their hurts, and and really loving the man in the mirror, and their world will be absolutely miraculous from that point on. And you're able to handle things in a much different and better way.
Yeah. Again, healing those wounds is that's obviously what I do too. And it's insane how, especially the ones from childhood, really affect adulthood. And until you
Yeah.
heal those childhood wounds, they're still going to keep showing up, even in birth.
Yeah.
And so, with that in mind, how, from a man's perspective, because women obviously give birth and we know what we want our husbands to do. And I hear it from a lot of clients, I didn't hear this from my husband, and I would like in labor itself. And I would have liked to hear that, I'm doing a good job, or that he's proud of me, or
Yep.
It's not even about what he's doing when they're in labor. It's more of how he's that they want to hear more of from them. So what would you how would you, from a man's perspective, how can a man be strong and supportive and present
Right.
during pregnancy, childbirth, and even postpartum too?
Right. And again, when we got pregnant with our little Bernadette, our 8-year-old, we ended up in the ER 3 or 4 times because she had some heart problems during that.
Oh, wow.
She already has low blood pressure before being pregnant, and then you had pregnancy and a whole lot of more water on board, and it just caused her heart some issues. So, and again, it was not just always being there, but making sure that I'm speaking up. If I see a doctor or nurse do something I didn't like, or they should be doing more, I speak up. I'm the husband. I need to speak up. And then, yes, I said it earlier, women rise with praise. So, honey, you're doing great. You're doing wonderful. You look fabulous. So this is what we are called to do, is to completely support our wives. But it's really taking charge of that room, understanding that the doctor's ultimately in charge of the medicine, but I'm in charge of my wife, and I make sure everyone knows that, so that there's no question why I'm in the room. I'm not just sitting there quietly. I'm not fading into the corner. I want to make sure that I'm there for my wife in every way.
Yeah, I mean, what you said about speaking up and advocating for her is huge. I know so many clients that I have would love to have had their husband feel comfortable speaking up. And so that they didn't have to be the one while they're during a contraction saying something
Right.
please don't do this or do this instead. So how do you get to the point, or is it just going back to the wounds and healing those wounds? How do you get to the point where you can speak up like that?
That's part of it, because I didn't speak up. I didn't do any of that. My first 2 kids, I'll tell you right now. I almost got pushed out of the way by the nurses, and I let them, because they're like, "Oh, we're here for her. You got to get out of the way." So I allowed that, and so part of that was learning. Part of it, we grow in wisdom and knowledge and experience. And for the younger men, again, there's no reason why you can't step into that now. But you're going to need to get around some other men who can help you do that.
Yeah. All right. So I was on, I think it was Instagram, or maybe it was Facebook, I don't remember. And I saw that there was this opinion piece on fathers in the birth room. And this opinion was saying that the birth room was traditionally meant for women only, and that fathers should not be present. What's your take on that?
I personally would disagree with it, because I've been in the room with every child. I've been in the room with every child born. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why I'd want to miss that. And I can't believe my wife wouldn't want me there. I think I was very helpful and supportive to my wife. So I'm not quite sure where that piece comes from. Again, other than somebody with an agenda of some sort.
Yeah.
What it feels, I didn't read it, but that's just what it feels like, Bridget.
Yeah, no, I was just curious. And so, shifting gears to a little bit of a heavier topic. Again, a lot of the clients that I work with, they have experienced miscarriages or infertility, or making really, really hard decisions about their babies.
Yes.
What advice do you have for couples who are going through really hard things around infertility, miscarriage, loss, any of that?
I'm going to take a moment and speak directly to the men. So if the women need to
that's perfect.
go grab their husbands or whatever, so I speak directly to the men. We are called to be the leaders of the relationship, not a dictator, but we are a leader. And then our wife is our wise counsel, so we always discuss everything with our wives. But we need to make a decision. We need to decide. It is not good judgment to make a decision when we're in a very poor, I'll call it energy state. If we're extremely sad, we're in grief, we're angry, we're resentful, not a good place to be in to make a decision. That's how like wars start, right? Yeah. This when men make decisions from that, really not a good place. First and foremost, you've got to get with your own feelings and emotions. For an example, I teach men how to rage, how to get with the emotion of anger, rage, and resentment in a healthy way so that they can clear the mind long enough to go, okay, now I can see all my options. I can see I need to make a decision. But when we're in the anger and rage of it, we only see one way, and that's we're going to kill something, right? We need to seek out and destroy whatever's causing this. So first and foremost, men need to get with their emotions. So then they can be emotionally available to help their wives get with their emotions. Because in my experience, Bridget,
yeah,
when you're not feeling safe, if you're with a husband that doesn't allow you the space to feel your emotions, you're gonna hold those in, and you're gonna put your walls up. So the man needs to lead. He needs to get with his own stuff, and then he needs to be able to open his heart and be fully available to his wife. And then from that place, they can have the conversation that needs to be had. And I guess that's the other thing I would add for men. There's a lot of men, and I'm one of them. Like I used to be really bad at this. We're afraid to have certain conversations. We don't want to talk about it, right? It's too scary of a topic, or it's going to bring up something, or again, there's this fear we're going to lose your love. So if anything comes up that I think I'm going to lose your love, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to discuss it. And they need to learn that that is killing the relationship, and they need to bring it up. They need to bring it up. They don't wait for the wife to bring it up. You know it needs to be spoken about. You need to bring it up in a way, again, that she feels safe enough to respond and to have that healthy, go back to your word, communication, which, again, they know they can, but there's always a lot of fear. Get with your emotions. Be emotionally available, get over yourself, get over your fears, and have the conversation.
Yeah, so that's so interesting that you said that you teach them to rage.
Yes.
Like, that's such a good reminder that it's, even as adults, it's not good to suppress our emotions. Like, God gave us them for a reason, and He's trying to get us to do something with them.
Yes.
And unfortunately, most of us usually choose the wrong thing to do with them. And then that other part that you said about like fear of losing their wife's love.
Yes.
That like kind of broke my heart whenever you said that. But I mean, I've heard my own husband say something, not that exact thing, but whenever we have an argument, I'm somebody who needs a break, and I need to like leave for 5 minutes to collect my thoughts, and then I come back. And it took almost like 8 years into marriage. I think it was 9 years into marriage for him to be like, whenever you leave, it makes me feel like you're never going to come back.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. I just thought like, I need 5 minutes to cool off, and then I come back and like we can chat. But whenever he told me that, it was like, why didn't you just say that? Like, so that was really interesting for you to hear that, for me to hear that.
You opened a one layer deeper.
What's that?
That abandonment feeling he's feeling has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Something happened to him when he was younger. Maybe mom. I don't know. I'd have to talk to him.
Yeah.
But there's a deeper wound there. You're triggering it. So understand you're the trigger, but you didn't create it. You didn't cause it. This is from something else.
Yeah. And I mean, it's definitely better now because he knows that I'm not leaving for good. I'm just leaving to like go outside for a second.
Right.
And, but I always come back. But he had that personality. He has a personality where if I go to leave, he literally follows me. And that makes me even more angry. So we had to have a conversation around that. But all right. So I guess kind of along those same ideas, like, why do you think so many men struggle to validate their wives' like birth trauma or what it is that she went through, and how can they shift that perspective in their mind? Because so many clients that I have, their husbands don't think it was that bad, or like
Right.
they don't understand why the wife is like that upset about what happened.
Okay. So I'm going to use them. I'm going to do generalities. So
Yeah, that's
it's
fine.
not going to be meant for everybody, but in general, this is just more proof that they are so out of touch with their emotions. So keep in mind, they've stuffed down their emotions for so long. They're numb,
Yeah.
right? And again, as little kids, we're told not to cry, stop crying. You know, all
Yeah.
this. We
Man
get told
up.
this, so we learn how to stuff it down 5, 6 years old. You know, we know how to do it. So when they become adults and they have all these emotional things happen, and you're wondering, like, it doesn't even faze him unless he's watching Old Yeller and then he cries at the end. Okay, this is not uncommon, but that doesn't mean that he's in touch with his emotions. It just means that triggered something from his childhood to the
Yeah.
point where he couldn't hold it back anymore. So men really need to do this emotional work. They've got to get in touch with their own emotions and experience them, because they're not going away. And there's a lot of men on medication that are trying to make it go away.
Yeah.
It's not going away. So they need to start expressing and feeling their own emotions. Because once I learned how to feel mine, and I got more in tune with my wife's, it has taken me to my knees in pain when I started feeling my wife's pain. Because keep in mind, here's another difference between men and women. You guys have a higher pain threshold, right? If a man had to give childbirth, it would kill us. Like we would be dead, because
Every woman listening is like, yes.
like, I know this. Like, I absolutely know this. We don't experience pain the same. You guys just know how to deal with it so much better than we do, right? So, but once we start experiencing our emotions, and my heart started to open, and I could start feeling my wife's emotions, it changes the dynamic of almost every conversation. Because instead of getting defensive and taking everything personal, when she started, talking about this, that, or other thing, because again, to us, it sounds like nagging, it sounds like complaining, and then we get defensive. And this is like this happens every day in relationships. But once I'm in touch with my own emotions, and going back to triggers, I've gotten with all of my triggers. I can't even mention something today that triggers me anymore. I don't get triggered, right? I get curious, and things might draw my attention, but I don't get triggered. Like lazy people used to trigger me. Like I'd fly off the handle if I seen somebody doing something lazy. But I got with all that because there's parts of me that are lazy, and I didn't like those parts. So it's basically this what getting with your triggers are. So I got with all my stuff. So when my wife's doing that, I can look at her from a place of love and compassion. And go, wow, what's going on with my wife right now? I need to be here for her. That's a game changer. And I'm no longer afraid of losing her love. I know I can't. There's no way I can lose her love. There's nothing I can do. Again, she can choose to stop loving me. That's because love is a choice. I define love as a choice and an action. It's a verb. Yeah. She can choose to stop loving, but that has nothing to do with me at all. That's her choice. I choose to get up every day and love my wife. And I make her coffee every morning, by the way, Bridget. Even when I'm mad at her, I get up and make coffee. So we have a choice. And as long as we're choosing love, love will conquer everything. We can go back to the scriptures on that. Love conquers all. But if I have all the knowledge and the experience and the wisdom of the world, but I don't have love, I'm just a clanging gong, right? So it's going to come back. If I don't love myself, I don't know anything about love. I haven't experienced love. I haven't really given love. I can't expect her to give me that.
Yeah.
I can't live my life as most men do. Again, we all do this. I did it too, where we're validated from something outside. Oh, look at my wife, or look at this company I grew. Look at my job. Look at these accomplishments. No, my validation comes from God, and God loves me, and so do I.
Yeah, so good. And so, one more question on husbands.
Sure.
So a lot of women feel really like isolated and alone or
Yeah.
abandoned and rejected
Yep.
after a traumatic or even just a challenging birth experience.
Yes.
And so sometimes this continues and turns into like postpartum depression or anxiety.
Yes.
Um, Sometimes it doesn't. But how can a husband like recognize the signs that his wife is struggling, even if it doesn't go all the way to like postpartum depression? How can he see that even if she's not talking about it?
Let me say something to the wives first. When you experience some kind of traumatic event
Uh-huh.
and you express that in whatever way you express it, but again, as men, we know, oh look, she just experienced something very traumatic. Most men are going to get quiet. We don't know what to do, right? And then in the wife's mind, she could be making up all sorts of things. See, he doesn't love me. He doesn't care for me. You see where this is going, Bridget? So,
Yeah.
like, because of the non-communication, each person is making up stories in their head,
Mm-hmm.
and marriages will never work if we're both in our heads,
Yeah.
right? We've got to be in our hearts. So,
Mm-hmm.
I need to really work on that muscle of love, compassion, and empathy, not sympathy. Please do
Yes.
not give your wife sympathy. It doesn't work. It makes it worse.
Yeah.
Empathy is what she needs, and it's what you both need. What do we need from God? Grace, mercy, forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
What do we need to give each other? Grace, mercy, forgiveness. Right?
Yeah.
So everything that God gives us, we need to give to each other. And part of that is, again, love, compassion, and empathy. And
Yes.
too many people running around this world giving each other sympathy, which is more like pity and all that. Like, no, I
Yeah.
don't need that from you. I need empathy. I need somebody to sit and feel with me, um, and to at least understand a little of my pain. Like, men are never going to fully understand a woman's pain, so I just want to make sure that we're clear. Like, I'm never fully going to understand the depth of pain my wife feels in certain moments in her life, but at least now I can experience some of it because we're more connected.
Yeah.
And as long as I'm experiencing her pain as empathy, I'm no longer giving her sympathy. Sympathy comes from a place of, again, numbness and unfeeling. So men need to feel. They need to get in touch with their emotions. Um, there's a wounded little boy inside that cries once in a while, and that's not what I'm talking about. He's the one that needs healing.
Yeah.
So that the mature masculine man that can be vulnerable and share emotions with his wife is present, because that's the other thing is presence. We don't
Yes.
give we don't give you enough presence. My wife still tells a story to this day of something that happened many years ago. When I started doing this work and I understood what the word present meant, like, oh, it doesn't mean just being there.
Yeah.
I took her out to dinner, and I kid you not, extremely attractive waitress, all sorts of TVs above the bar with all sorts of games on. Every distraction a man can possibly have was at this restaurant. I never took my eyes off of her. I never stopped listening to her. And she was blown away at the level of presence that I gave her. She told her friends about it for months. So this is the gift that all men can give their wives, is just being fully present. Not just there physically, because that's the problem. Mentally, we're elsewhere. We're thinking about different things, or we're not really even listening. Your lips are moving, and I couldn't tell you what words you're using. I mean, this unfortunately happens too often.
Yeah.
So we really need to work on that being fully present, which means, again, I got to be present in my own body. I got to be present for myself to be able to give my wife that depth of presence that I'm capable of. And again, all men are capable of it, but most of them are not giving it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm really curious because you are a man, and I don't get the opportunity to speak to a lot of men in this capacity, is that I get a lot of women who really want to join my program because they have gone through a lot in their
Yes.
birth experiences. And they really want to do it, but then whenever they hear the cost of it, the investment, immediately they're like, my husband won't let me do that, or like he won't be okay with it or whatever it is that they tell themselves.
Right.
So from a man's perspective, like if your wife comes to you and asks you, can I please do this program because it's going to help me with X, Y, or Z? Like what's going through your mind? Like give us the man's point of view whenever your wife comes to you about any big investment, really.
Right. There's two answers, Bridget. So if I go back to I'd have to put myself back into my immature masculine. And my first question is, well, how much does it cost? Right?
Yeah.
Is this something that we can even afford to do? I'm going to go off into a direction, and I'm literally the man who's done this before, Bridget. So I'm not. I pull out the spreadsheet of our household budget and go, see, there's no money in the budget for it.
Yeah.
I would use the budget to protect myself because I wasn't being a man living to his full potential, providing for my family. So understand the place that it comes from. We want to give you everything, but when we can't, it hurts. And so I'm going to deflect. I'm going to say something else or take you somewhere else, other direction. That's the immature masculine. The mature masculine is going to ask questions. Share with me more what's really going on then. Let's have a conversation. I really need to hear you. Obviously, I haven't been showing up. I haven't been hearing you. I need to hear you. So let's first have a discussion about what's going on. And then absolutely, if this is something that you need, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it happen.
Yeah.
Right. So that's this is the yin and yang, the immature versus the mature. And it's going to be hard when we're dealing with the immature because again, it's going to bring up that not good enough. If I don't have enough money to do this for you, it's going to tear me up. You don't understand how much it's going to hurt me that I can't say yes. Yeah, it's not going to come out that way.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to go, well, see, I asked and he said no. Again, there's deeper problems there on both sides. There's deeper problems.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's so interesting to hear from a man's point of view.
Right. Have him call me. And we'll have a conversation, and we'll see what he does then.
Yeah, that's great.
This is what's needed. This is why he needs to be around other men, because if he comes and asks this group, "Hey, my wife brought this up," and we're going to be shaking our heads like, "Why didn't you say yes? Like, what's stopping you?" Your wife is asking for something she really does need and she deserves. So let's make it happen.
Yeah, no, that's so interesting. And so before we wrap up, I know that you wanted to tell a story. Do you want to tell us that story?
To give some context, my wife is a nurse practitioner, and she teaches nursing. Okay, so she's fully aware of everything that's going on when we go in to have Bernadette. We're in Louisville, Kentucky, and the University of Louisville Hospital is a teaching hospital.
Okay.
For whatever reason, this is where we end up. That's where our gynecologist or whatever practices. So we're in the room. It's in the evening, and we've had 4 or 5 nurses come in. She needed to have a catheter. 3 or 4 nurses couldn't get it in. They finally go get like the oldest nurse on the floor. She comes in, whammo, it's in. She's like, you have to do this. It goes at an angle instead of straight like normal. And we're going on. So as it's progressing, like the catheter falls out and a nurse is trying to put it back in. And this goes back to what I was sharing with you before. I'm like, whoa. Yeah. It doesn't go in straight. It goes in this angle over here. And she's looking at me. I'm like, look, I was here earlier and I watch everything you guys are doing to my wife. I watch everything you're doing to my wife. So she actually gets it in and it's fine. The doctor comes in. The time is getting closer. And the doctor asks, can I have a few students come in? Because again, it's a teaching hospital.
Yeah.
Sure. No problem. Couple students. That's fine. I'm not kidding. By the time this was over with, there's 25. And I'm cracking up like, who handed out tickets out in the hallway? Right. So I don't know how many, like most men would have probably really been quite uncomfortable at this point. There's men and women. Like it's a crowd.
Yeah.
The room is packed during Bernadette's birth.
That's so funny. How did your wife feel about that?
Again, as a nurse practitioner, she's like, she didn't care.
Yeah.
She actually she did a little teaching while she was there.
Oh, did she?
So, she tries not to, but when a nurse is not doing the right thing, she absolutely points it out. So it was a hoot. I just couldn't believe how many people came in to watch the birth of my daughter. It was wild. So
that's so funny.
Yeah.
So good. And she's your 8-year-old, right?
Yes.
Nice. Okay. And so before we wrap up, where can people find you? Tell us like every platform they can find you on, how to encourage their husbands to reach out to you, that sort of thing.
So the website www.Catholic Men's, which is plural, coaching. So Catholic Men's Coaching, all one word, .com. Kenneth at CatholicMen'sCoaching.com is my email address. You can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn. And if there's a couple of ways to do this. Most of the time in my experience, when a wife says, you need to go talk to him, they don't. That's just my. Now, if the wife reaches out and sends me, his cell number, and then tells the husband, hey, this guy's going to be calling you, I will reach out to him 100% of the time and have a conversation.
Does that work usually?
Do all men enroll? No. Again, some men.
Yeah, but they're receptive to that.
Most men, and I'm going to use the word lazy again. If somebody's calling them, they'll. And again, keep in mind, yes, ma'am, yes, dear, yes. We want to say yes to you.
Yeah.
So we're not going to say no. More likely, not going to say no to that. But trying to get them to call me, that's hit and miss. Yeah. Some of them have. I'm not saying it's never happened. Some of them have. I have a client right now that it was the wife that said, hey, you need to call this guy, and he's one of my best clients. So to the wives, so you know him better than I do, so whatever you think is going to work. Send him my website. Again, tell him that I'm going to call him, or ask him to call me, or send me an email. I mean, a lot of people will hide behind an email first. Have him email me. I'll always respond.
Cool. No, it sounds amazing. And just talking with you too, it's like what we do is so similar, obviously from a man and a woman's point of view, but like really healing those deeper wounds, because they keep showing up. Even if you think you've healed them, until you actually heal them, especially like heal them with Jesus, they just keep showing up.
Right.
All right.
You mentioned that, but I'm going to mention this book real quick.
Okay.
It's called Habits for a Healthy Marriage, a handbook for Catholic couples.
Nice.
By Dr. Richard Fitzgibbons. And I mention this because what you just said, every problem a husband and wife has when you go through his book, I should say not every, almost, all has to do with our wounds from mommy and daddy.
Yeah.
And he goes, even people go, oh, I worked on that for years. I'm okay. He's like, no.
Yeah.
Again, we carry around some of these wounds forever. They're like healed up, but we do peel back the scab every once in a while. So they're always there. So I don't want to give anybody the illusion that they're just completely poof, they're gone, never to raise their ugly heads again. They're still there. Thank you for doing the work. Thank you for healing. Thank you for being a better person. Thank you for being a better version of yourself, being more of the person that God's creating you to be. And we always, always, always will have those traumas and wounds with us. They're just neatly tucked away until something exposes them again. And we got to be just aware of that. And he talks about the virtues and how to use the virtues in each situation. It's a beautiful, beautiful book.
Yeah, it sounds nice. And one thing that I always do, because I obviously know I know so much about wounding and everything like that, is that every night and every morning I always ask God to heal my children. And I ask the Blessed Mother to put a little rose or something in the cracks that we have unfortunately put in them.
Right.
And I don't know. It just is such this beautiful imagery of she's just taking all these little cracks or breaks that we are unintentionally doing to them and just making them beautiful.
Yep. Amen. All my kids are going to be in therapy and counseling for years and years and years.
All right. So before we close up, what's the most important piece of wisdom you'd share with the discerning mother?
Do everything in your power and pray for him, your husband, to take him along for the ride with you. We need to do this together.
Mm.
So, and you are each other's most important, because even though I have 6 kids, my wife is number one, and I'm her number one.
Yeah.
We have each other. Kids are going to go. They're going to go do their thing. They're going to, go live life, and so please don't become the parents that focus on the children.
Yeah.
Husband and wife focus on each other. The love of each other over spills onto the kids. If you direct all your love to the kids, there's not going to be enough left over for the spouse, whether that's husband or wife, whoever's doing it. So kids are a beautiful gift, but don't let them get in the way of the marriage.
Yeah, that's so good. It's so hard sometimes, but so important. Well, thank you so much. This conversation was amazing. We'll have to have you back and continue chatting more. And maybe next time I'll take some questions from clients or people that I know to get those answered. But thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Bridget. Anytime. I'd love to do this again.
Yeah, so fun.